Transporting your cat can be an ordeal for both you and your cats because many cats hate to get into cat carriers. And in addition, there's all kinds of types with all types of features, and some of us just don't know what to get. In fact, many of us only have those carrier boxes with holes that we got at the shelter when we adopted our cat. But those do not last very long, and they are not a good long-term solution. The reality is that cat carriers are extremely important. A few weeks ago, my friend Jenny had to evacuate because there was a gas leak in her neighborhood. She has 5 cats and she only had 4 carriers, and so it was a problem that she did not have enough carriers for the cats. You never know when there will be an emergency or you will need to transport your cats. You can anticipate a short trip to the vet, but you never know when a longer trip is going to be required or you're going to have to keep your cat in a carrier for a longer period of time. In an emergency, you also might not have a long time to coax your cat into the carrier. You might have to do it immediately, and having to struggle with your cat when there's an emergency going on is going to be a problem. So in this video, we're going to take a look at cat carriers, and I'll offer some tips on how to make the whole ordeal a little bit easier for you and your cat. My name is Francisco, and welcome to 9 Lives to Live. On this channel, I work with my 3 cats, Calypso, Skyfall, and Mr. Muffin, to help you improve the lives of your indoor cats. First, and I might not even have to mention this, I've already mentioned it, is that you should have a carrier for each one of your cats so that you can move them all at the same time if you have to. Now, this is relatively easy for those of us who have 1 or 2 cats, but the more cats we get, the more we tend to fall behind in the number of carriers. I used to have just 1 carrier for both Skyfall and Calypso. And for a short drive to the vet, this was no problem. This was enough. But when I got Mr. Muffin, I got a carrier for each one of them. Now, if you have a lot of cats, I know what you might be thinking. Do I really need 5 or 8 or 10 different carriers? What could possibly happen that I will need all those carriers at the same time? You're correct that the odds are small that you will need all those carriers at the same time, but still it's the most prudent thing to do. And even if you don't have a standard carrier for every one of your cats, you should have at least enough of those box carriers folded up and put away so that you have some way to transport all of your cats at the same time. The last thing you want is to be trying to load all of your cats loose into your car, because as you try to put one in, all the other cats will be trying to get out. Second, it's best if your cats are familiar and comfortable with their carriers. If you keep your carriers stored in the basement or the attics and they are never seen until you need to take them to the vet, that will lead to a struggle. Cats are skeptics and suspicious of just about anything. And if they have not seen this carrier for a long time and only associate it with the vet where they are poked and prodded, it's no surprise that they will not want to get in. I know that my cats have a sixth sense. When I walk by them to pet them, no problem. If I walk by them to try to pick them up to take them to the vet, they sense right away that something is different and run off. I know that I have some kind of tell, I just don't know what it is. If I was playing poker with my cats, I know that they would win every time. So I suggest that you leave at least one of your carriers out. And if you have more than 1 carrier, rotate them so that they become familiar with each one of them. And they can smell it and they're comfortable with it. Let them sniff it. Let them get inside. Let them sleep in it. Let them play in it. And if they refuse to get in it after you've left it out for a while, toss some treats in there so that they have to go in to get those treats. But then they can come right back out again. So it does not become a place that's suspicious, but rather a place that they are familiar with. So that if you actually have to get them in there to transport them, it will not be as big of an ordeal. In addition, a benefit of having one of the carriers out in a familiar, easily accessible place is that you can access it easily. If all of your carriers are stored away in the basement or in an attic or in a garage, what would happen if you can't get to that particular space in an emergency? So let me show you guys where I keep my carriers. I keep 2 of them in the back room of my house over here. And I also keep 1 of them by the closet of the upstairs bedroom. And I'll show you where that is. The cats can get to it and they're familiar with it there. If for whatever reason I can't get to the back room, I can always have access to that one. That variety gives me a little bit of flexibility in an emergency. You also want to make your carriers comfortable. So put a pad inside or a blanket or an old towel, which is very easy because you can wash it easily if they sleep on it or whatnot. So what should you look for in a carrier? One of the important considerations is how long your cats are going to be in there. If they're going to be in there for any extended period of time, your cats should be able to stand up inside of the carrier. A carrier that is small where they cannot fully stand up is okay for a short trip to the vet, for example, 5-minute drive, but it's not acceptable for a long-term trip. I have 2 small carriers and 1 large one, but I really should get 2 larger carriers for Calypso and Skyfall just in case I ever have to travel with all 3 of them or have to keep them inside for an extended period of time. I have also found that carriers with metal hardware are the best. The ones that have the plastic hardware fall apart very easily. If you open and close them for a year or a year and a half, eventually everything will break. In this carrier, for example, the plastic bits have already broken up and I've made some temporary fixes to them, but it's not going to last for very long. Now, most standard carriers are front-loading, but they also make carriers that are front-loading and top-loading. And I think that these are probably the best and give you the most flexibility if your cat hesitates to get inside a carrier. Some cats simply refuse to get inside a carrier. Now, I don't have that problem with my cats. They go into their carrier very easily, but many people do have this problem. One trick that you can use is rather than putting your cat into the carrier face first, is back the cat into the carrier rump first. This way they will not see it and get anxious immediately. Now with the top loading carriers, it makes it a lot easier because they might not even see that you're putting them inside a carrier if you put them in from on top. Or they might think that you're putting them in a box, and you know how much cats love boxes. This particular carrier is made by Frisco, a Chewy brand, but almost exactly the same models can be found by other brands. I think probably they use the same manufacturer. And I will put a link below just in case you're interested in buying one of these. Beyond these basic carriers, there's all types of ways to transport a cat. One of these is a cat backpack. Now these cat backpacks are useful if you do not have a car and you need to walk to take your cat somewhere, or you need to use public transportation to take your cat to a vet. I did a review of one of these backpacks and I will put a link below in case you're interested in seeing that. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can get carriers on wheels that you can roll around. You can get carriers that are soft. You can get them in the shape of handbags or carriers made out of fancy leather. You can even get cat strollers so you can stroll your cat to the place that you want to go, or even just to give them a sense of the outdoors and give them a different experience of the neighborhood. I did a review of a cat stroller and I will leave a link right around here so that you can watch that next. I think you'll be interested and entertained. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.